Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Talking Tradesman. Today in the studio we have Rich from Major League Painter. Rich, thank you very much for coming in today, mate. Let's talk.
That's all right. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, mate. I always grateful of anybody that makes the effort to travel all the way in and take time out your day or evening, as it were, to come and have a chat. You're actually pretty local though, mate, aren't you, being Gloucester?
Yeah, well, Cheltenham. So yeah.
Cheltenham.
Yeah,
He said that because it's posher in Cheltenham.
exactly. Yeah. Not that I really fit in there, but yeah, it's about 50 minutes from here.
Yeah,
like
it's not too bad. I like Cheltenham. It's nice.
Yeah, it's pretty smart. Yeah, it is nice. Apart from when race week's on, other than that, it's all right. Race week's a nightmare. So
it's a bit like a spa town type. Is it Cheltenham Spa?
yeah,
it is. Yeah. I thought it's a bit like Leamington or Bath or the places like that, isn't it? The architecture's pretty nice.
Yeah, in certain parts of it. But,
the bits that I've been to, mate, like the town centre, is all good.
Yeah.
So, as you can probably guess, Rich is a fellow painter and decorator in the trade. So we'll go back to the beginning, mate. How was life for you in the early days? You were telling me a bit pre-record, so you haven't always been a painter, have you?
No. So I left school. I started out as a chef, and I did that for just over 8 years, and that was slowly killing me. I think doing about 85 to 90 hours a week.
That's insane, mate. That's insane. I mean, I don't know how many hours do you reckon you do a week now?
Wouldn't even say half that, to be honest.
Do you not reckon?
No, so I work like about 9 till 4.
Yeah, see, that's on site though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So because I've thought this myself, and I'm thinking, I'll do the same. I'm probably 8:30 till 4:30 is my like standard, what a base a day on.
Yeah.
But then when you take into account all of your unpaid hours, which is still work, and you're talking any quotes that you do through the week, any going out quoting, but also then, like social media now, massive, which is obviously where I know you from and where you've contacted me. You add in all the time that you spend on social media. I mean, I spend far too much time now managing my social media. But that's work, mate, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I never really thought about the social media side of it being work, really. But yeah, I guess it is.
It is. I think it's more enjoyable work.
Definitely, yeah.
But
100%.
Nevertheless, it's still working on your business. So even if you enjoy it, technically, it's still work.
Yeah.
And I reckon if you combine those two, but speaking personally, I reckon I'm on at least 80 hours a week when you combine socials.
Yeah. Probably about the same, I reckon, then, yeah. Something like that, yeah.
It's not hands-on, but it's still, to me, it's still time that you're thinking about work, like your brain is engaged in work and work-related stuff.
Yeah, I guess if you're going to go down that route as well, whenever I go like to anywhere, like out to eat, to the cinema, whatever like that, constantly looking at the decor as well. So do you class that as work too?
I don't know about that, mate. I think that is just the curse of being a decorator.
I can't switch off, mate.
I remember when I was younger, I would go out. So I first started business and I was working with my grandfather. When I first took over the business, it was kind of like a handover. And I realised what he was doing now, but we used to go out for meals and food and stuff like that, and he would sit there and he'd be like, so Russ, how many days do you reckon to do this then? Like, to do what? Like, full refurb on the restaurant, how many days you're saying? So that was like an ongoing theme. It just became, I would almost do it without thinking. I'd be sat there, just look at him and go, 22, sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's the curse of the decorator, mate. You can never switch off.
It's pretty horrible, to be honest, isn't it? Like, I go to like Weatherspoons. I'm a sucker for their 3 plates for £10 deal, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, the decor in there it's awful.
Hey, listen, mate. If a former chef is saying that that's where to eat, then Weatherspoons.
Weatherspoons aren't bad, mate. It's all right. It's all right. Yeah, it's not nothing special, but
does a job.
Yeah, it's deep fried happiness, really. So.
That's it, with deep fried happiness, man. I love that. So actually, just to mention at that point, one of the rules for any guests that come in, particularly decorators, just don't look at the decor in here, mate. It was done on a time scale and on a budget. It looks okay on the camera. That's all that matters.
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot worse, mate. And I've seen your actual work you get paid for. So yeah,
that's a valid point, mate. I certainly didn't get paid for this one, unfortunately.
No.
But yeah,
so it's not the same. You're not getting paid for it, is it?
No, mate. No. In fact, actually, to touch on that, how are you working at home? Do you work at home?
Yeah, no, like I've lived there be 3 years this year, and I'm on my second cycle of decorating it already.
I'm saying that's good.
Well, I didn't want to do it twice, but it's like discovered that I had mold in the flat and like loads of damp and stuff, so I had to get that sorted and then obviously redecorate. And then where I'd moved in originally, I was just like, I don't really like what I've done, so I just wanted to do it. So slowly getting around to do it all again.
Fair enough, mate.
Yeah,
Like, my missus will listen to this at some point and she'll just be shaking her head because I hate it, mate. I avoid at all costs working it out. In fact, I've been known in years gone by, I would actually get the lads that work for me to go and paint my house because the way I justified it was I was paying them less than I was earning. Therefore, it made more sense for them to go and paint my house while I work for a customer and earn more money.
Yeah.
But it actually works. It's a good tip for anyone listening to this, because if I paint my house, I'm going to take every shortcut known to man and probably not do it to the standard that I would as a job. But the lads that work for me, when they were there, it was like, oh shit, this is Russ's house. I need to get this bang on. So it worked both ways. They did an extra good job.
Yeah.
And I got to not do it. So
I've considered getting another painter in, but I don't really actually know that many by me, to be honest, other than just like one. But I don't know if I could really just
hand it over.
Yeah.
Mate, I would with a smile on my face. I would quite happily. In fact, you come paint my house, mate, any day of the week. You're not too far away, Rich, to be honest.
I don't know if you'd like my standard, mate.
Trust me, against my standard of doing my own house, it'd be sound.
Well, I'll give it a go if you want.
So yeah, getting back to you, my man. So you spent 8 years as chef.
Yeah.
Got out of it because of the hours.
Yeah, just the constant stress and obviously the tiredness and like the constant leg ache was enough for me just to think I just don't want to do this anymore. And yeah, just like one day, like it was, I remember it quite well the day I left. The World Cup was on in 2018 and England were about to kick off. And I thought, I just want to go and watch this, to be honest, and I can't bother with this. I had been slapped about on breakfast on my own, did about 300 odd covers. And then as soon as my break rolled around, I just thought, I'm going. Got on the bus and I went home and I never went back. And then just started applying for any other job that I could get. Obviously, didn't have any experience in anything but cooking. That's all I've done since I left school. So yeah, it was obviously quite hard to find another job that isn't cooking. I mean, I got offered so many more on like Indeed and stuff. Like this, everything that is cooking. And eventually I became a delivery driver. And I did that for about 2.5, nearly 3 years, I think.
How was that?
Yeah, that was actually really good. Money-wise, pretty terrible. But I worked out sort of recently that I was working from about 5:30 in the morning until 1 p.m. But the actual amount of work that I was doing is about 3 hours a shift. Because like, my old boss is going to hate me for saying this, but like we deliver all the parcels, right? Because you got to do it on like an ePod sort of scanner.
So all you got to do, mate, to cover yourself legally is just say in theory. For the purpose of the story.
Yeah, so I just delivered all the parcels and then basically I went and sat at home for like 4 hours for the rest of the shift. Then I took the van back to the yard and then came home. So I was doing roughly probably about 11 hours actual labour a week.
Wow.
So like the money wasn't bad for that. It's like just over £1,000 for like 11 hours a week. So
does this geezer taking people on now? The reason I asked you, like, how was that, is I've often thought to myself, just this like nagging thought, you know, when you're deep in business and stressed and all the rest of it, I'm like, oh, for God, just go and drive for a living, like, just be stress free, just, you know what I mean? I mean, I can't financially afford to do that, although 1,100 quid a week for doing like 11 hours or whatever.
It's 1,100 quid a month.
Oh, a month?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I thought you said a week.
No.
Oh, okay, no, that rules that out again.
Yeah, it's all right if you like sitting around doing nothing a lot, like me. Yeah, it's not financially a great job to have, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was I got made redundant from there because the place was shut and they were moving down to Bristol. I didn't want to travel, like put my fuel into that just for that sort of money a month. So then I just took the jump into decorating, really.
And how did that start? How did you get into that from a cold start, as it were?
Well, so I decorated like my bedroom when I was like, I don't know, maybe 15 or something. I did an awful job. Like bumping the roller onto the ceiling, that sort of stuff. I ended up, because I was painting the room black, I painted it all black in the end because I just made so many mistakes. Thought you can't see it. Anyway, so I enjoyed doing it regardless of how well it was done. And then obviously I left it at that, and then did like a few like little jobs here and there for like my mum, my nan, whatever, my sister. And then thought, do you know what? It's not actually a bad like maybe option to consider going down that road. So obviously when I was delivering, I was like starting to look for other jobs, and then I came across a company that was hiring, and I started out with them, and I was there maybe a couple of months, something like that. Not very long at all. Not enough to learn everything. Obviously, I'm still learning now, and I've been at 3 to 4 years.
Never stop learning, mate.
Exactly.
It's
yeah.
one of those.
Every day's a school day.
Yeah,
so,
I'm 22 years deep, and I'm still learning. And
yeah.
the trade is evolving so much now. I mean, I say I'm still learning. You've come in at the point, 3.5, 4 years ago. I've probably got 10 years worth of knowledge that is completely redundant now.
Yeah.
So like the way that I learned to, because again, when I started in the trade, everything was oil based. There were no dustless sanders. Everything was hand sanding. So a lot of the old techniques now are completely outdated and redundant.
Yeah.
So it's as it evolves, everyone's in the same position. We're all still learning.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, I mean, if you've still got stuff to learn, then I definitely have.
Always, mate.
So, yeah.
Always.
So yeah, where was I? Yeah, obviously I've still got loads of stuff to learn. And then going back to the company, I was with them for a couple of months, and then I decided that I just really didn't like working for them. The money wasn't great, so I just jumped into self-employed. And I didn't have a great start to it. I don't know if you know that story or not.
No, not at all, mate. No, go for it.
So basically, I went self-employed on the 1st of September 2021.
Oh, right,
then,
okay.
Then a few days later, I ended up in ICU. Basically, I had a wisdom tooth that should have been taken out about 7 years ago at the time. And I was in a lot of pain with it. Like, I don't know if you ever had a wisdom tooth. It's quite painful.
Mate, I've got one that should be removed, so I'm listening to this now with trepidation. But
I mean, this will probably scare getting taken out ASAP. So yeah, I was in a lot of pain, and like my throat was like starting to like swell up a bit, and I was like having trouble breathing, and I didn't want to swallow, like even to the point where I didn't even want to swallow saliva or anything like that. So I went to an emergency appointment at the dentist, and they said, "Oh, you've got an abscess on your wisdom tooth.
Yeah.
But we can't do anything for you today. So take these antibiotics. Come back in 2 weeks." And I thought, I don't know if I can go on with this pain for that long. And then I was awake all that night. And then 7 a.m. I went into hospital. A few hours later, I'm being put to sleep in theatre. And they cut my throat open to drain all the fluid out of the abscess, because
the abscess had got that big.
Yeah, the abscess, like, it's basically closing my airwaves in my neck. So it was like swallowing like a brick. Honestly, it was horrendous. So like any sore throat from colds I get now is just a walk in the park, and I never moan about them anymore because they're just nothing on that scale.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had to drain all that out because supposedly that abscess was about 6 to 12 hours away from bursting into my bloodstream and killing me.
Never.
Yeah.
So is that like septicemia or something like that it would develop into? But
yeah, I guess so. Eventually.
So they had to remove it before it burst naturally.
Yeah, because obviously it started to spread down my throat, and a couple more hours and it would have been in my chest, and it could have burst in there.
That's horrific, mate. From dentistry,
it's insane, isn't it?
How long had the abscess been there?
So I remember the pain coming maybe on like the Tuesday, like getting quite bad, and then the Wednesday obviously was getting worse, and the Thursday going into the Friday, that was when it started getting
Was it
really
come on
bad.
quick? When you said
Yeah.
when you said that you were struggling with it for like 7 years, I assume that the abscess had been slowly building.
No, so it wasn't the abscess it was building. It was like, I think it was like maybe about 2014 when I went to originally go to see the dentist about the tooth, and they just filed it down at the time. But I should have had it taken out then, and then obviously fast forward to 2021, the doctor said like, "Oh, this should have come out a long time ago. This would have all been avoided if it had."
Yeah. And you'd just gone self-employed at that point?
Yeah, literally, like that was the week I started self-employment.
So how long were you in hospital then?
So I went in the Friday. I was in ICU all day Saturday until about 3 a.m. They decided to wake me up and move me just to a ward, which was a bit annoying.
Yeah.
And then I came home Monday afternoon, and then I was off for like about a week or so because like obviously where they had me, I like put to sleep and everything. All my muscles just like obviously just forgot how to work, so I then had to like learn how to use them again. I know it wasn't like that long. I was essentially been let down, but I had to learn how to walk again.
So do you get mad anxious now if ever you get any like pain in your mouth?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
I bet it is, man.
Luckily, I haven't had any pain in my mouth since. Obviously, this is touch wood. But yeah, so anytime anyone says like wisdom tooth, I'm like, get out.
Do you know what? I don't think there's any worse pain than tooth pain. But to explain why I haven't, so I've had all my others out, but I've got one on the right hand side of my jaw here, that is basically it's not coming through straight; it's coming through on the side. So I don't. There was a word for it they gave me. So it's basically it's coming through at an angle.
Yeah.
So they were like, the dentist have said they can't do it; it needs to be done in hospital. But also that the root of the tooth is on the nerve to my jaw or something.
Yeah.
So what they've told me is if they remove it, there's something like a 60% chance of nerve damage. So I was like, all right, okay, well, what does that mean? And what I've been told is, and please, if there's a dentist out here listening that can like come against this opinion and tell me that it's all wrong, fantastic. But I've been told that there's a 60% chance of nerve damage because to remove the tooth, I've got to potentially remove a small piece of my jaw.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, well, what's nerve damage mean? They were like, well, it can either manifest as numbness, so I could either have temporary or permanent loss of feeling to that portion of my jaw, or temporary or permanent pins and needles. And it's the pins and needles thing that's stopping me doing it, mate, because the thought of permanent pins and needles in my jaw, nah, you're all right, thanks.
Yeah, pins and needles like in your legs is bad enough, isn't it?
Yeah, so, and they've said it's sort of like, on the camera, but all down there, basically, I could lose the feeling to my jaw. So I'm a bit like, you know what, while it's occasionally, I'd say I'll probably get an infection maybe once every 2 years. Antibiotics takes care of it, but I'm really dubious about having it removed because of the threat of the nerve damage.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah. You know what it is with me, to be fair though, Rich? I'm like major paranoid about sleep. So I really value sleep. And if I think something's going to stop me sleeping, I don't want to know. And that's it. So I'm kind of straight away, I go to, okay, pins and needles. I could handle that through the day, but is that going to keep me awake at night?
Well, there's that. But if this will help you get it done, if you like your sleep, when I was in hospital with mine, they put me on this like an air mattress, and then the most uncomfortable things to sleep on was the point where like I couldn't really sleep, and they had to change my mattress like in the middle of the night because I was complaining that much. I just wasn't getting no sleep on it. So if you value your sleep and don't want to end up on an air mattress,
I don't want to end up on an air mattress.
Honestly, they sound comfy, but they're really not.
I don't think I really want to end up with permanent pins and needles either, though, mate. So it's a bit of a rock and a hard place situation, this, isn't it? At the moment, though, touch wood, it's okay. So we shall continue as we are. That's where we're at. But so you got over your obviously getting once you come out of hospital and got back into business.
Yeah.
So really, sort of like overall, you're quite new to the building trades.
Yeah, 100%. Very new.
Yeah.
Got a massive like imposter syndrome still.
Really?
Definitely. Yeah. I don't feel like I truly belong here. Like obviously, I think it's good having Instagram and like social medias to like learn like all the techniques and things like that. Like I've learned so much of everyone on Instagram, yourself included, and like
don't listen to me, mate. Whatever you do, it's not the road to success.
Oh, I don't know, mate. but yeah, at the same time, you're thinking my work's never going to be as good as some of these. Like some of the big like hot shots on Instagram. There's some phenomenal work on there, and you think I bet I look like a right cowboy compared to them. And that's not like it's not going to be the case, is it? Let's be honest. Might
Not
be
at
to
all,
some people,
mate.
but
No.
yeah, like I certainly feel like I still need to earn my stripes in this trade, and I think rightly so.
Yeah, I mean, look, experience does get you places.
Yeah.
But I believe that the main reason that experience is so valuable is because you learn by your failures. And I think that the people that have been in the trade for longer have just failed more, but they've learned from it. So, and that's certainly been the case for me. Speaking from my experience, it's not that I was born with a particular skill for decorating. I was born into a family of decorators, so I was always around it. But in fact, my granddad used to say to me, he used to say that you could train a chimpanzee to be a painter, but it's learning how to do it fast enough to make money. That was what he used to say. I don't agree with that statement, but that's what he. But there is some kind of truth that resonates through it in terms of I believe that everything we do is a skill you can learn, and time just gives you more time to learn those skills.
Yeah.
So, well, it's interesting that you say you feel that way, actually, that because there's a good chance you wouldn't have felt that way prior to the rise of social media.
Yeah, this is very true. I mean, yeah, well, I wouldn't be following loads of decorators for one, obviously. So
Double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has its ups and downs, doesn't it? So, I mean, personally, I think it's good to have social media around. Otherwise, I wouldn't have learned. I'd have had to learn, just things by obviously YouTube's one new way you pick stuff up, but that's not always the correct way of doing things. But yeah, there's so many like people I've learned so much from on Instagram, and I really value obviously like everything I picked up from stuff, and it's all just like free advice, isn't it? And
it is, mate. Yeah. I mean, as I said, it is a little bit of a double-edged sword because you do see the best of what everyone can offer, which isn't a bad thing. However, comparison is the thief of joy. So if you're comparing sort of like your best, and you in your mind you're never going to think of your best as being as good as it is versus somebody else's best on Instagram that probably in real life doesn't actually look as good as the picture, because let's face it, we all take the picture from the right angle to hide that little bit, that little knock, that little bump, the little bit that you could have maybe done a little bit more prep. So yeah, it is a little bit deceitful, I find. Instagram, it's a great tool for a portfolio, for a customer base, but when you're viewing it as a spectator and basing your own expectations on it, can be a little bit of a dangerous place. It's great if you can take motivation from it, and also skills. I mean, there's some fantastic decorators on socials, and I'm doing stuff. I'm still learning. I can credit Instagram with so many things. From my business, I would say I would like to think that me personally getting on social media maybe, I don't know how many years ago it was now, maybe 5-6 years ago. Been in the trade 22, but prior to getting on Instagram, I was set in my ways. Admittedly, I didn't really think there was much more to learn because I didn't see anything to learn. Then I got on Instagram and it was like, do you know what? There's levels to this. And I'm not actually as high up it as I thought I was. So I've consistently worked to try and bring myself up. But it's great. I love it. I love watching people's little, hints, tips, tricks, and ways of getting around things. And then you see people's finish and you think, I could do a bit better. But the capabilities there, it's just working out a little bit like what we were talking about before, we were talking pre-record about day rate or price work. Because ultimately we're in it for business, aren't we? Instagram, as great as it is, it don't pay us anything. So it's a case of getting profit out of a job. But
exactly,
being as you are quite new to the trade, like how have you found it in comparison to your employed positions before?
I personally really, really enjoy obviously being my own boss. I could never. It's probably quite cliche to say this, but a lot of self-employed people say this. They can never go back to having a boss now. And it's just. I mean, it has ups and downs. Obviously, every job does. It's not always going to be walking apart, but I feel like the pros definitely outweigh the cons being self-employed to obviously having a boss. And yeah, like especially a boss in the kitchen trade. Like probably my old boss is probably going to watch this, I think. So I won't say too much.
You're not going to give him a shout out, Rich, no?
No.
Give him a wave.
No, I don't think I will, mate. He'll know who he is.
Wave with one finger.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't go back now. Definitely not. I mean, even if I was to leave this trade, I think I'd maybe try and learn something else, and then still be my own boss at something else. You know, whether it's in the trade in general. Or
it's a
whatever.
funny one, isn't it? It's a point that I do sort of want to keep making, because obviously I've started this podcast to address the sort of like mental health issues within the building industry, which is, to me, it's a crisis, and it's on an upward trajectory, not downwards. However, for all the negative that comes with being in the trades, in fact, everybody that I speak to say the same as what you've just said.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do anything else. And I'm the same. I love being self-employed. I love the trade. And I wouldn't want to do anything other than being in the building industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm at the point where there's a couple of concerns for me now, like physical concerns in terms of like wearing my body out. Because I was your typical prat that didn't wear knee pads, didn't look after my body, and I started at quite a young age. So, you know, there are a few bits of wear and tear going on with me now. So there's some advice I can give you, mate. Make sure you wear knee pads while you can.
I don't own knee pads.
You don't own
I have a kneeling pad, but I just can't well to keep picking up and dragging it around with me.
See,
I want to get knee
Rich,
pads.
I'm going to get you back on the podcast in 10 years' time just to say, now when you know what I was saying about them knee pads.
Yeah, I'll just say with no knees, man. But,
mate, honestly, it's if there was one bit of advice I could give my younger self, it would be that.
Yeah.
Wear knee pads.
Yeah, I do hear that a lot, to be fair. I do want a pair, to be honest. Like I want, like, you know, the Dusty Boys ones that everyone raves on about.
Yeah, man, I've got them.
Have you?
Well, you're always in shorts as well, aren't you?
I am always in shorts.
So in the summer, I'm always in the Dusty Boys ones, because they're actually a shout out to Dusty Boys if you want to sponsor the podcast.
And make them in my size. That's why I haven't bought them.
Really?
Yeah.
What size do they do?
Well, so like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I've looked it up and
they won't fit.
They won't fit. No.
Dusty Boys, let's get Rich some custom made Dusty Boys knee pads, please.
No, but that'd be nice. Really nice.
But yeah, those ones are bang on, because you can't really feel them through the day.
Everyone always goes home like forgetting they got them on, apparently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do want a pair. But have you seen those? I'm going to say another brand here. You know those DAPS joggers that everyone's wearing at the moment.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Obviously, they do like the knee pads and stuff, but I don't wear trousers. I'm always in shorts, so like
year-round shorts. I saw on your Instagram you were somewhere with snow on shorts.
Yeah, I was in Munich late last year, -10 and snow up to my knees.
Why is that? What is it like? What I mean is, do you just not feel the cold, mate?
My legs just don't feel the cold. No, not at all. No.
So here's the thing then: if your decorating don't work out, you've got to be a postman.
Yes, it's very true. I could be a postman. Yeah, I went to Edinburgh the year before, actually, and all the Scottish people there, they were like asking me, "Oh, he's got to be a postman." Like I heard people like walk past it, "You got to be a postman."
Yeah, yeah.
Or 2 people asked me if I was a postman whilst I was there. I was like, "No." Like, you should be. But yeah, it's a career choice, I guess.
Just for the shorts, mate. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
I've got to be warm at all times, mate. So I can't do shorts year round because I haven't got that in me. But it is easier for wearing knee pads. Like even now, I'm not always wearing knee pads when I should be, because I've got overalls or tracky bottoms on or whatever, and I only like the Dusty Boys ones. The other ones pinch into the back of my knees. So it's that boring podcast. We were just talking about knee pads. But it's vital. It's vital, and it also can affect your mental health if your knees are fucked. So, yeah.
Yeah, good swerve out of that one then, man.
That's it, man. That's it. It all comes. But it actually, I mean, joking aside, that does play a part. It does play a part. If your physical health isn't there, then it's very hard to have good mental health if your physical health isn't there.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, it's and that is a key thing in the building trades. Is it does wear your bodies down.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to consider, mate. We'll have to get somebody that's going to get you some knee pads big enough for you to wear.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, that's the dream, really. Obviously, it's all I'm really missing from a kit is knee pads, I think. But yeah.
What would you say then, Rich? What's been the hardest part about being in the trades and being self-employed? Like, what's been most difficult for you?
Well, obviously the start of my journey wasn't amazing, but then obviously trying to find work after that, trying to get my name out. I mean, there is a lot of decorators where I'm from. There's a lot of competition. I don't know what it's like, here, but there's a lot, well-established decorators, and I thought, how am I ever going to get my name out here? So it took maybe about 5-6 months to really truly get going.
How did you go about doing that? Just out of and I asked this out of interest because when I started up, things were so different.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my business is quite well established, so we don't really. Sounds really arrogant, but I don't have to hunt the work anymore. Quite a lot. We've got a really good customer base, and a lot of my work comes to me.
Yeah.
Which I know is a really fortunate position, but it's also a position that I put myself in with 15 years of hard work.
Yeah.
But that said, if I'm trying to put myself in your boots. How do you establish a business these days?
Well, do you know what? I'd say Facebook was my biggest friend. And it still is, in fairness. It's where I got all my work, or either that or word of mouth. But I've never been on any sites like My Builder or Checker Trade, things like that. So just heavy in the advertising. Early on Facebook, join as many notice boards as you can. All local towns or whatever near you. Just keep posting, saying you've got availability here and there or whatever. Just keep promoting yourself, and then obviously eventually things start to snowball. And now I'm obviously, this is my 3rd year of being self-employed. I now don't have to go out and look for work anymore. It comes to me. Obviously, again, it all just comes through Facebook or whatever. It's just social media. I think
social media is massive now, isn't it? To be honest, and it's such a huge tool. If you don't utilize it, you're missing such a big trick.
Exactly,
because it's there, it's free. We get loads of inquiries through socials.
Yeah.
It's weird actually how it's shifted. It used to be a lot through Facebook. We actually get a lot of inquiries through Instagram now.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre.
I don't get any at all on Instagram.
Yeah, it seemed to just shift.
2 jobs for Instagram.
Within the space of a few months. It seemed to really shift, and I think again, my business, we're quite fortunate in that not that we pick and choose our work, but we don't have to take all the work that comes our way. And I have found that the Facebook leads that we get are a bit more. The conversion rate isn't as high. You're getting jobs where people are asking for 3 quotes and that kind of thing, whereas the Instagram seems to be a little bit more handpicked, a bit more like, I've found you, I want you, we're not getting any other quotes. So,
yeah. I suppose, but you're obviously, I guess, big on your posts on Instagram, obviously put your face out there. I mean, who wouldn't with that face? But I guess obviously they feel I don't know if your Instagram posts go directly to your Facebook as well.
Yeah, they do.
They do, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, obviously, they feel like they know you. Obviously, you put your face out there daily, don't you?
I do, mate. But do you know what? All credit to my wife for that, because literally when a bit about my past, when I met my wife, which was I shouldn't be guessing this, should I? Maybe 7 years ago or
you
so.
You spoke about it recently on the podcast.
Yeah, mate. I've got the memory of a goldfish. My memory is terrible.
You did call me Craig when I first got here as well.
There we go. Look, you'll have 3-4 names by the time we finish. But when I met, I wasn't on social media at all, and it was her that said to me, "You're missing a trick." Yeah. But it's a progression thing. So when I started, I didn't post myself on it at all.
Yeah.
But I actually looked into a bit. Actually, funnily enough, when I was studying psychology, and started studying social science, and part of that actually touched into marketing and advertising, and the ways of using social media. And there's a lot of research data behind how you use your social media, and things like putting your face out there. It's a big tip. You're meant to do it to utilize the best results, because what that does, it gives your customer. There's you have to put yourself in the boots of your customer. So with a customer, there's a certain level of anxiety that comes from, I don't know this person, I don't know what he looks like, I don't know, and all that kind of thing. And it's just removing one of those anxieties for them.
Yeah.
So the way I always think about it is, if they've got 5 decorators lined up, and you can tick as many boxes as you can. The one that gets the most boxes ticked gets the job. So if you've got accounts that are kind of anonymous, but you've got an account where your face is there, and this is it. I mean, key to success. But if you look at my Instagram profile, I keep an eye on it, and maybe every, I don't know, 10, 12 posts on my page, I'll try and put a personal post on there.
Yeah.
And it's for that purpose. It's just to let the customers know that this is who's behind the business. This is me. And if you put things out there like, I don't know, a post where you walking the dog or family, and all these things actually play towards a customer's psychology for trust. So if you put a post of walking a dog, it tells them that you like animals, you're walking a dog. Post with your family or kids, or borrow a kid if you ain't got one. Just any of Rich's friends that have got a spare kid going, just take the kid to the park and take it. Do not take pictures with random kids at the park. Let me just put that out there now.
Digging yourself into a hole.
I'm trying to cover myself here, mate. But yeah, there's a lot of psychology behind the way that you use social media.
Yeah.
So that's it's something I looked into, and it has made a difference without doubt, because customers do know. And it's took me a long time to get comfortable with getting on camera, because it's a really unnatural thing to do. But putting those stories up and having your face on it, does work. It does help.
Yeah, you seem very comfortable doing it now, in fairness.
I'm not.
Doing it. Well,
I'm not, honestly. It might seem it, and I'm glad it does seem it, but
comes across
it's a couple of things. One, I forget to do it. So I'll be really good on it for a month or two, and then it drops, and I'm like, oh, Christ, I need to do that. But yeah, I have to force myself to. It does come easier now. You do get more used to it, but it's worth doing.
Yeah, I do it from time to time, but I hate my face personally, so...
You got a nice face, Rich.
No, you just
I'm going to set you some homework, mate. I want to see your face on your Instagram page at least once a week.
At least once a week?
At least once a week.
That's too much, mate, I think. I'll lose followers, I think.
You'd be amazed.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But, I try to do like the human side of Instagram as well. Like you say, posting everyday life on there. Like obviously I go watch Cheltenham play. Yeah. So whenever I go there, and we post, that sort of thing. And like you say, I'd say it helps the customers, think you're not just like a robot, you're not just some...
Absolutely, mate. It's one of the blessings and curses of social media now, is that you can do that, but also to a degree you're now competing with people that do it.
Yeah.
So if you're the one that doesn't opposed to the one that does, you're now at a disadvantage. So
exactly.
Everyone out there listening, get comfortable with putting your face on social media.
Yeah, exactly.
You ain't got to worry now, mate. Anyway, look, your face is going to be out there for eternity for everyone to see.
Awful.
It's not awful at all.
It is. This lighting's doing me no favours, mate.
It's all right, mate. I'll put a filter on it for you.
No, thanks. I appreciate it.
So, other than obviously starting up and getting work in is probably the most sort of anxiety-driven thing to do. How did you cope with it? Because you mentioned like imposter syndrome before. So when you started getting your first inquiries, how was that?
It's a bit scary, to be honest. When you first obviously get your first one, you got to go into someone's house. You got to obviously make sure you protect everything, and it's just, I don't know. It's just really scary to start out with, and to say it gets easier is, I don't think it does really. Like unless I've worked for a customer before, like every new job I start, I go there sort of thinking, what could potentially go wrong. Are they going to be a nightmare customer? It's just so many things to factor in.
I think that's normal, mate. It is normal. And it, I know you just said I don't think it does get easier eventually. I used to have the same sort of concerns. I'm a lot more relaxed on it now. I think you get better at reading people as well, and always through experience. So you'll have nightmare customers, but then the next one that shows the same personality traits, you remember, you dial back and you're like, oh, hold on, I've had this before. Yeah. So it is just like building that database really of experience.
I mean, I haven't really had that many, well, maybe I had like 2 nightmare customers so far, which isn't too bad really. It's like 1 a year, I guess. No. So I'm due 1 this year again.
Don't say that, mate. Don't tempt fate.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. But Yeah, you're always going to get one, aren't you? But
You do, mate. And just to sort of put you at ease, I mean, as I said, I've been in and around the trade for 22 years now, and I had potentially my worst customer in all that time in December of this year, just gone.
I think I remember talking to you at the P&D show about that.
Potentially, yeah. I'd have been on that job, and it just got worse.
Yeah.
It just got worse, and I've openly admitted that ego put me there, because there were red flags, lots of them. I was told that the decorator before me had been asked to leave, and then the one before that had left, and I thought there were two before me, or one before me, I think, at quoting stage. And when it went through the conversations, it turned out I was the sixth. So you can imagine, can't you?
Yeah.
And that customer, Christ, I mean, they tested my limits. So, and that's me 22 years in, still making mistakes. And it was my own ego of thinking, well, they might have had problems with everyone else, but they haven't seen my work yet, and I'm better, essentially.
That staircase would look absolutely insane.
Well, the customer wasn't so sure.
You're joking.
No, mate, no.
Wow.
I mean, they were happy I got paid, but the customer in question went round in natural light, artificial light, and torch light to check each and every wall, and then went round with post-it notes and put them on the wall in areas where there were supposed issues. But the issues, I mean, I'm talking about slight imperfections in the plaster that were about half the size of my little fingernail, that you genuinely could not see unless you shone a torch down the wall and put your face about 30 centimetres from it.
That's not on like trading standards, is it?
It's not. No, there's industry standards, accepted industry standards, and she was well and truly out of the lines of those, to the point that on several occasions there were post-it notes where I had to ask, what is it that is the issue here? And then even she couldn't find out what it was. So she would stand looking at her own post-it note and go, I'm not actually sure why I've put that there. We'll just forget that one. We'll move on. It was just horrible, mate. The job, it was a horrible atmosphere. There was never a compliment. The best I got was, that's fine, I guess. Even like that staircase I spent 3 weeks on.
That was insane, man.
Yeah, and I got, that's okay. That's fine.
Did that not put you down at all, though?
It did. It absolutely did, mate. I nearly walked off the job on 2 occasions, had site meetings where I wanted to leave. I really did. But it kind of got pulled back. It did. It did get me down. Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, by the end of the job, fortunately, I had like a finish line in sight. But yeah, it was tough, and that was right before Christmas. And then they pulled out a load of work. We were meant to do the whole house, and then they have suspended the work for the rest of the house. I'll leave that one open to interpretation as to whether I'll be going back to finish off that. But yeah, no, it was tough. It was tough, that one. And as I say, 22 years, I should have known, and I was kicking myself afterwards because I did know. Yeah. I knew that they were awkward, but I thought my ego has walked me right into this because I thought I'd be okay. And I wasn't. So yeah, it's so when it happens, mate, don't beat yourself up. It happens to all of us. It happens to the best of us. You get blindsided, you get caught out, you get complacent. Because I haven't had some of my customers are fantastic. I haven't had a bad customer in years. And it, blindsided me. I got complacent with it.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, man, isn't it? Like, I don't know how you can judge that at all. Like, honestly, like, again, obviously the pictures you put up, angles and everything, but that, from what I can see, is absolutely perfect, that job. Like the handrail on that one. How is she even judging things like that, though? I'm not saying she is judging the handrail itself, but
yeah,
that's a joke, man.
I don't know. If I'm honest with you, I mean, not to focus on me too much, but that job, I was genuinely very happy with the work that I did.
Yeah,
and I'm very critical of myself. Yeah. The prep work that went into it was insane.
Yeah, I saw all the stories on it.
Yeah, but
the staircase alone.
Yeah, but there was always going to be issues with it. I could have prepped it to any level, and she'd have found issues. But it wasn't just me. Like every other trade walked off the job. So there were electricians that left and didn't come back. There was kitchen fitter that didn't come back. There was cabinet carpentry people that wouldn't come back. It was everybody.
Yeah.
It's just a real. They are out there. The customer is not always right. There are some terrible customers, and
100%,
that was
yeah.
one of them. Managed to find myself on. So
Yeah, you'll have to tell me her name just so I don't ever go there.
off record, mate. I will let you know.
Yeah, just give me a little post-it note with it on.
Yeah, man. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, really.
No.
But getting back to you, though, mate. Getting back to you. I know on your way up here, you were telling me that you'd had a couple of cancellations. Was it before Christmas?
Yeah, so I had like a nightmare December, really. Obviously starting in Munich. I don't know if you saw any of that, but I got stuck there.
You were stuck in Munich?
I got stuck in Munich, yeah. I was meant to come. I went out there to watch football with my mate and his dad. We went out Friday morning. Went to watch Bayern Munich play, but the game got cancelled.
Oh, okay.
So after that was cancelled, we were essentially there for no reason for the weekend. Meant to come home Sunday, like about midday. Anyway, long story short, we booked onto 14 different flights, and they all got cancelled because of the snow and obviously the weather and all that. And the 14th flight, we were actually on the runway for an hour and a half on the plane, waiting to take off, and the pilot said, can't take off, our weather radar's broke. So he got us off. And then, absolute nightmare. So at this stage, it's like getting on for like late Monday afternoon. Obviously, I'm meant to be at work Monday. And then we finally managed to get out of there, fly to Vienna, and then fly home from there. And I got home and I went to work that Tuesday morning. Got home about 11 o'clock and I went to work for about 12 after being awake for about 48 hours trying to book onto flights and all that. So I was tired and all that. So this was the start of it. So yeah, I went to work, obviously missing out a day already, so I'm already behind on schedule, thinking I've got a big job coming up next week and I can't afford to be behind. So anyway, I've had to rush through like the jobs I have booked in for that week. And the following week, I pretty much arrive at the place, I'll say it, Harley Davidson showroom. So I was meant to be decorating, and that was meant to be 3 weeks' work. And I got there, and they were like, "We haven't decided the colour." And I've had this booked in for 5 months. They haven't decided the colour, so I can't do the job. So bang, 3 weeks' work out the window.
I'd have thought it'd just be orange and black, wouldn't it?
Well, they're rebranding, so they're going to like either a dark grey or a light grey.
Oh, okay.
So across like the UK, apparently they're doing it. So yeah, I've just lost all that work just on the lead up to Christmas.
On the morning of the job,
pretty much, yeah. So yeah, then obviously I've got to try and find some work. Luckily, my mate's doing a house renovation. He sorted me out with a lot of work just before Christmas and into the new year. So yeah, obviously then I was trying to pull jobs forwards, and obviously the more I pull forward, the less I've got, further down the line. So
yeah.
I didn't want to pull too much forward. But then again, obviously being January, no one's got any money. No one can afford to, get me in or whatever. So about 3 weeks with no like a decent amount of money, obviously with Christmas thrown into that as well, and how expensive that is, and all my own bills. So December was a really hard month, and early into January. And I finally managed to get back to work, back on schedule, and then it was looking all good. And then the following, not last week before, I had another cancellation with a really bullshit excuse. Customer emails me about 48 hours before I was meant to start. And bearing in mind I've had this booked in since June last year as well. 2 days before, she emails me saying, "I think it's best if we leave the decorate until the spring so I can open the windows so we can let the paint dry better."
They don't have central heating then?
Well, this is the thing. I was there in like May, June last year. She had the heating on, and like it was quite warm time anyway.
So like you say, it's
She's one of them that
excuse, isn't it?
Yeah, she has the heating on all the time. So like, I was like, what is this excuse? So obviously that was another week's work out the window. So like in the past, I'd, including November, I had about 3 cancellations / job moves then as well. So I've had about 8 cancellations in the past 2.5 months.
Wow.
So that's been a bit of a struggle. Obviously,
how have you coped with that?
Well, like I said, my mate's doing a house renovation, so he's been really good for me. And my other mate, he's just got me in to do work for the sake of it, really.
Yeah. Like you said, you're not earning what you should be earning. In
no, sense. Exactly. So yeah, financially it's been really tough.
And yet you still want to keep going.
Yeah, for some stupid reason, mate. Some stupid reason I want to keep going.
I think it's one of those things, isn't it? When it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, because I've been there with the job cancellations and you get that sickening feeling of realisation, particularly with a big job before Christmas. I can imagine the feeling of that sinking like realisation of, oh shit, that's just gone. Now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I've got this, I've got Christmas, I've got all the rest of it.
To be honest, when was it? Maybe early this month, obviously, whilst I was still going through trying to find all this work, I did message my mate and I said I feel like giving up. I was quite close to really just packing it in. And I thought, is that just quite like a, not babyish move, but, you know.
Mate, I think it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. I've been there myself. It's completely okay to feel that way because it is tough and it is frustrating. And there are going to be days where you do feel like quitting. And it's perfectly natural.
100%, yeah. But yeah, so like that was like a bit of a crap day, to be honest. I just thought I'm gonna pack this in. I'm just gonna go and find some other job somewhere. But my mate was like, "No, don't give up. You know, obviously you're still reasonably new into the trade. You know, just keep going at it. You know, you do have times like this. Like he's a plumber. He's been doing it for years and years now. And he's essentially said what you've just said. You know, you do have those moments where you want to give up. Obviously, with customers being like that, but yeah, like obviously he essentially changed my mind. Like I don't know how serious I was in myself in actually, you know, calling it quits, but you know, on that day I felt like I don't want to do this anymore. It's not worth the stress.
It's definitely a big factor. And it's across all the trades. Everybody has this because we all work for customers. And there's cancellations, I believe, is a big issue.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I only started taking deposits maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And prior to that, in fact, it was actually during COVID that I started on deposits because during COVID I got mega busy. And my diary went over 12 months.
Really?
Yeah, but it wasn't a good thing because what was happening was I was having customers call me up and say, oh, you know, Russ, can we get our staircase done? I'd be like, look, it's over 12 months. Oh, that's okay, we'll wait. But what they were doing was booking in, and it was like provisional almost to them. There was no consideration for me and my business. And then I had 3 or 4 jobs on the bounce where it got close to the start date, and I'd ring the week before and go, you know, have we got colours or whatever? And some of them were established customers. And it would be, and you could tell by the tone of voice, it's like, 1, you've forgotten.
Yeah.
And 2, and then it was like, actually, can we just postpone it? We've decided we're going to go on holiday or we're going to do something else. I think restrictions were lifting.
Yeah.
And I had a spate of that. And you could tell that everyone's just gone, oh, you know, actually, we're going to go off on holiday instead of get the decorating done. And it was at that point I went, I can't do this now. So me personally, I've implemented a 20% deposit. It's not huge, and it certainly wouldn't save me on a big booking cancelling. But it is enough of a deterrent, I've found, to stop people with the last minute cancellations.
Yeah.
So there's got to be, to me, and I stand by this, it's got to work both ways. You know, if you want me to hold dates in my diary, there's got to be some security there.
Yeah.
And 20%, I think, is, I know some people take up to 50 or more in different trades. Obviously, our material cost isn't huge, is it? So
not really, no.
But it's enough, I guess, to be a sting to the customer if they drop out last minute. And let's be honest, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, of course.
Because it shouldn't all fall on out, or like you had, where you've got 3 weeks then where potentially, I mean, they don't know, and obviously they don't care, that you've then got 3 weeks of potentially zero income. Fortunately, you had a plan B.
Yeah.
But quite often it's things like that can actually push people over the edge, particularly if they're already struggling.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, isn't it? Because the customer quite often doesn't feel that responsibility, that it is a livelihood, it is our living.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you know, times are hard out there. The cost of everything's going up for everyone. And a lot of people do live paycheck to paycheck or month to month. So to pull the plug on somebody late notice, it's irresponsible. So
yeah, of course it is, yeah.
Do you take deposits?
Not on all jobs. Like obviously, if they're over like a certain amount, then I will try and take a deposit. But this big one, they didn't want to pay one.
No, it appears why.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's something I need to start doing a bit more. Especially obviously with how the last few months have been. But like you say, like I think it's you can't speak. You're within your own right to take a deposit. Obviously, like tattoo artists take them. You know, everyone takes them nowadays, don't they?
Yeah.
So like, why can't we?
Yeah.
You know,
I must admit, mate, I was potentially a little bit apprehensive to begin with because it wasn't something I'd done.
Yeah.
And I probably thought along the angle of it gives somebody a reason to not use me. But I quickly replaced that with, you know what, if they're serious about getting the work done, they'll pay the deposit. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
If they're hesitant on paying a deposit, it's for one or two reasons. One, they either think that they can't trust me, I'm going to run off with the money. Or two, because they're considering that they might not actually have the work done.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
you know, I'd like to think that my business is established enough to gain the trust. So to me, again, it's a red flag moment if somebody says they don't want to pay a deposit. Because I'm like, well, why?
Yeah.
You know, you want me to trust you with 4 weeks of my diary, but you don't want to trust me with 20% of the bill. You know.
Yeah, it is a bit weird, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. I probably will start doing it. In fairness,
I think it's vital, mate. Honestly, you know, I certainly don't want to give you advice that you don't want.
No.
But I think it's vital now.
Yeah.
And I think I haven't had any pushback at all personally. There's been 3 years now I've took deposits. I haven't had anybody who has told me that they didn't want to or it was unreasonable.
Yeah.
So I have had. The only thing I've had on a couple of occasions is people that have said they want to book in, and I've mentioned the deposit, and then they've sort of said, "Oh, okay, yeah, no problem, I'll come back to you," and they don't.
Yeah,
and that kind of makes me think, well, you were umming and ahhing anyway.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I guess I have like a fair amount of faith in people just to trust that they will stick to their word. Obviously, I mean, up until like November, like I hadn't really experienced anyone like counsel on me. Like they've all been good to their words, and if anything, they message me first saying, "Oh, we decided colours," things like that. So like, kind of got just a bit too comfortable with not taking deposits, and just trusting that they will still go through with it. But obviously, like the last few months, we sort of changed my mind a little bit on that. You know, not everyone's key to their true to their word. Sorry, not key to their word. Especially big established companies.
Yeah.
So
I think they're one more step removed from the responsibility, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because you've got either a manager or some staff member, and it's not even their own house. Then it's they're hiding behind the facade of a company. Well, it's not me. It's in your instance, Harley Davidson have let you down.
Yeah.
But it's not. It would be like, I don't know, John Smith, the manager, or whoever's in charge, they're the person.
Yeah.
But there isn't that direct responsibility, so it's easier for them to do.
Yeah.
But I'm militant on it now. And even if I work for a big company, I'm like, well, you know, that's my terms. If you don't want to work to my terms, that's absolutely fine. We just can't work together, you know, and I've got to cover myself.
Yeah.
So, and particularly as you get bigger potentially and you've got lads on, you know, you'd need to, I mean, I should probably be taking a bigger deposit on bigger jobs. But it's fluid. So depending on the job that came in, I potentially would ask for more.
Yeah.
You know, if I was committing 5-6 lads to a large long-term project, but we'll deal with that as and when it comes along.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly not easy, is it, Rich? That's the thing. Being self-employed, and there's all these problems, but we're all sat here going, but we love it.
To an extent, yeah. But yeah, 100%. Yeah, there is a lot of problems in it, but
I mean, the other thing, mate, that obviously I want to touch on is when you messaged me about coming on the podcast, you told me pre-record there was a reason for that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, go for it. So July last year, I lost my best friend to suicide, and he was in the trade. He was a carpenter and a really, really good one as well.
I'm really sorry to hear that, man.
Thank you. It was a big shame to lose him, and it was a bit of a shock at the time. he had obviously a lot going on. But he was always quite open with me, and we spoke, very deeply about mental health and things like that, and all of our problems. And he said to me that he could never take his own life.
Really?
Yeah, and he said it to me twice, and then a couple of months later, he's obviously done what he's done. So yeah, that was my reason for wanting to come on. Really.
Yeah, to raise the awareness.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, mate, as I said, I'm really sorry to hear that. It's always tragic, and like you said, I think it illustrates that your friend saying he would never do that, and then something's changed to the point where he's thought that was the best course of action.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those. Were there any warning signs in the build up to it?
Not any warning signs that he'd do that. No, I mean, obviously, like I said, he had a lot going on. Like his mum got diagnosed with terminal cancer and she didn't see out the year, so that was obviously hard for him to take, because he did still live at home, and him and his mum, they're very close. So obviously the news of that for him would have been heartbreaking. I mean, it's going to be heartbreaking for anyone, but if you've got a particularly close relationship with your mum, then and I guess all the stress of then, well, he was told that he would have 2 weeks to find somewhere to live, because they were renting their place. So then he'd have, obviously, to find somewhere to live. He wasn't that good with money, so he didn't have money. So there's another worry there.
So hold on, mate. I'm just processing what you're saying. So he was told that his mom had got terminal cancer, and then after she'd passed, he would then have 2 weeks.
Yeah, obviously she was still alive at this point.
Yeah. He would then have 2 weeks to find somewhere to live.
Yeah. So obviously we've been out on his ass essentially. So obviously that's stressful in itself, especially if you've got no money.
It's just a horrible, if you're dealing with the passing of a parent who you're close to, it's just a horrible thing to have to think that you've then got to deal with that off the back of that.
Exactly, yeah. And obviously I guess it all just played a big part into, his mental state. And he was like a former cocaine addict and drink addict as well, but he was clean at the time of doing it. So I guess obviously he hadn't been clean for that long, maybe about 4 months, I want to say.
That's long enough, though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Obviously, I personally have never done any of that, so or never had an addiction to it. So I can't can't think of the word.
Can't resonate with
that's it. Yeah, I can't resonate with obviously his daily struggle of the addiction, along with all these other problems he's now got as well. Plus, he had, obviously, his mental health wasn't in a great state before all of this anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's got to be some sort of weight on your shoulder, and to think that obviously that's the best way out. And so,
hell of a weight, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously everyone says, talk about it makes it easier. And it does. I'm not taking that away from it. But me and him spoke for hours and hours. We used to go to play pool every Thursday. Right? We went 12 weeks in a row once. Right? And we'd spent hours in there just shooting the shit, talking about whatever, talking about mental health, absolutely anything. And he was very open with that, anything, his own struggles. And all the talking we did couldn't save him, and it's just you've got to be in some sort of place to even begin doing that, to change his mind. Obviously, he said he could never do it on 2 occasions.
Yeah,
and I think how bad his state must have been to just do it. I hadn't spoken to him for 2 weeks, and none of his other friends had really heard from him.
Okay, so he went off the radar for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, he went quite quiet, and his mum said he had a tiny little relapse just on the one day, and then he was then fine again. But then I got a message on the Saturday morning. Funny enough, not too far from here, I was at Westminster Safari Park when I got the news.
Of course.
To say that he had taken his own life.
Yeah. Well, it's horrific, mate. It's just horrible to think that anybody gets to the point where they think that that's the only way out. I mean, in the aftermath of that, because of, often I would assume that people who are in that position think that it's generally there's this sort of reaction and perception and stigma that's knocking about where people turn around and say it's a selfish act,
Yeah.
which I think needs to be completely forgotten. It's that's just not the case, because when people take that action, often it's because they believe that it's the best thing for everyone. That it's better for everyone involved if they're not there. And it's always the afterthought, isn't it, that if only they knew how sort of cared for, loved they are, and how important and necessary that them being around is to everyone else. So I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, to anyone that's feeling that way or considering that at this point, what was the impact for you when you heard that news?
Well, this was the first bit of actual. I've never lost anyone that close to me before.
Okay.
So like, obviously, it was a completely new experience. So one, I sort of, I guess, had to learn how to grieve as well.
Yeah.
Which was a lesson in itself. But like, the days after that were like really heartbreaking for me. Like, luckily I was like surrounded with like good people, and it was really difficult for me. I guess it was for all his other like close mates as well. But this guy's been in my life for as long as I've been alive. So
Okay.
obviously it would have been 30 years this year. Like, I grew up with him, went to school and all that. So just all of a sudden he's just not there. It's obviously still now. It's like 7 months on, I think. Yeah, it's still like difficult now, and like I still struggle to believe that it's real and that I'll never talk to him again. Yeah, the opening days after that were like some of the worst of my life, and it broke my heart, mate. To be honest,
Yeah, I'm
it
sorry,
wasn't
man.
easy at all. It's not overly easy talking about it now. Like, I've spoken about it a lot, but
Yeah,
it's it still hits very hard to me,
I
especially
can
with.
hear that, mate. I really appreciate you opening up as well, and hopefully, I don't want to sort of make it work. The reason I've asked you that question is because I'm hoping, from the perspective of, if anyone's feeling that way, to see you feeling the way that you feel now about losing your friend, that, just to give that perspective to anyone that's in that dark place, that
Yeah,
they might not feel that anybody cares, but in fact, if they were to reach out and tell somebody just how bad they were feeling,
yeah,
that there would be a friend or a family member that would potentially be the you in the situation,
yeah.
and hopefully that would be enough to change that decision.
Well, exactly. I mean, you'd hope it would be enough, obviously, to change their minds. Whether it does or not, then it's another question, isn't it? But yeah,
It just affects so many people, mate, doesn't it? That's
yeah,
the thing. And,
100%.
and grief is such a weird and difficult thing to process. You'll have your days where you kind of feel okay and that you've processed it, and then it just comes back round and smacks you in the face again, and you have those thoughts and the realization that that person isn't there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the opening few days, I was just like, I was thinking, like, will I ever laugh again? Because I was proper bummed out, and like, early last year, like, I had like a bad sort of episode of like mental health sort of stuff early on, and then like I had been fine up until that, and like
Yeah,
I was sort of thinking, would I sort of spiral here myself?
it's got to be a concern.
Yeah. So like, I still think this is going on now, but like, I feel like ever since he passed away, I feel like I've tried to keep myself busy. Like I'm not at home very much. Like, I go out, like, I'd say maybe at least 5 nights a week. I'm out with like
Oh,
my friends
really?
and stuff. Not like drinking and stuff like that, because I don't drink or stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know tradesman doesn't drink, right? But yeah, like, I feel like I'm just trying to keep myself busy, just so I don't have to sort of.
Sit and think.
Exactly, yeah. Though I feel like I have gone through like the grieving process and stuff, and like obviously I'm okay talking about it now. And for example, yesterday, funny enough, I was just scrolling through some of our old messages and having a laugh at it. Like I can think about him now and, you know, have a laugh about things we used to laugh about or whatever. And, you know, it's a bit easier, but at the same time, it's still very difficult and still reasonably raw as well to me.
Absolutely, mate. I think with grief and loss and things like that the pain is always there.
Yeah.
It doesn't fade as such, but what you do is you learn and develop coping mechanisms and ways to deal with it, and that takes time. And that's where people say time's a healer. I don't think it is. I don't think time heals. I think it just gives you chance to learn tools to cope.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I hope, you know, and eventually being able to look back on the positives rather than the negative event at the end of that friendship.
Yeah.
But, you know, hopefully as time goes by, it'll, you know, the positive memories will outweigh the other.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we had a lot of positive memories together. It was always a good laugh with him, like always. But yeah, I feel like I've sort of started to turn the corner on it a little bit as well. And
I'm glad, mate.
Yeah.
I mean, on that thing, because you said about keeping yourself busy, it interests me because me personally, where I struggle, and my wife will pick up on, is when I'm working on my own for long periods of time, because I am an overthinker and my brain is going 101 miles an hour most of the time. If I haven't got things to focus on business-wise, I struggle. And at the moment, I'm working solo a lot. And I'm picking up on my own sort of thought patterns and struggles, as it were. How are you finding it working on your own? Because there's keeping busy and there's keeping mentally busy, and I find they're two different things.
Yeah, so like, I had this. I think it was last year. So I was on like a biggest job, and like I was there for like weeks at a time. I feel like if I stay at the same job for too long, thoughts started to creep in. I started to get a bit bored of the same job. I need like a new sort of like cabin fever, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I can't work in silence as well. So like
I'm exactly the same, mate. Yeah.
I have to have something on. Normally music, like music plays a big part in my mental health. So like if I say, for example, my battery dies on the radio, I've got to get straight out of the van. I've got to get another battery going.
It's interesting you should say that, mate. I'm very similar.
Yeah.
I'm actually the same at home as well. I hate a silent house. My wife can sit there in complete silence and just be sat on this. I'll walk in and think nobody's in. She's sat on the sofa, which one is creepy. But like, I can't, mate. I have to have some background music or the telly on or something. I'm not a good one with silence. So it's interesting to say that.
I'm a bit different at home, but like I'll quite often just, well, not completely sit in silence, like just scroll on my phone, not essentially like watching videos or anything, but, just scrolling with like the TV on in the background. But, I watch everything through my Xbox. So like when I've gone on the homepage, there's no noise. So like there's no noise there, but like I'm a bit different at home. Like the noise doesn't bother me that much. It's just a work thing for some reason. I guess spending so long working in the kitchen and having so many people around me,
I guess,
I guess it's like the company I miss. Like I've met some good people in that trade, and now I've gone from working with like, I don't know, 15 people in one shift to just me.
Yeah,
so like, tough. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
it's tough, mate. I think it's one of the main contributing factors to people in the trades and their mental health.
Yeah,
the solitude, because the statistics show that the two worst affected trades are painters, decorators, and plasterers.
Yeah.
Which are the finishing trades, and the two things they have in common is quite often they work alone. By that time, a building site is pretty much empty in theory. And we're certainly, as decorators, we're normally on our own, and domestics, you're very much on your own. And that's the thing that stands out to me, is that it's the solitude of being alone with your thoughts. But I'm the same at work, mate. I I'll go through my coping mechanisms are either the radio, audiobooks, or podcasts. Talking Tradesman podcast at all times, please.
I've not heard of that one, mate.
Right, let's end that there. But yeah, so those things have like play a big factor for me in my coping. But yeah, I think there's a basic human nature and human need. You know, we're social creatures, and you think of like POW camps. They used to use isolation as a punishment, and quite often we do that to ourselves at work.
Yeah,
you know, without really consciously thinking that that's what we're doing, but it is. You know, quite a lot. We're in people's houses. They'll be at work, and it's just us. You know, so it can be a solitary thing.
Yeah, definitely. Never really thought of it like that, to be fair. Yeah. I do find it difficult being on my own in houses sometimes. Like sometimes you get like a good talkative customer, not ones that like watching you too
Stand
much.
over you and talk. Yeah. Just pop in every couple of hours with a couple of tea, stay for 5 minutes.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, like sound like you really vibe off, don't you? Yeah, like, I do like a bit of company from the customers sometimes, you know. Like, but yeah, like since I've been in this trade, I've not worked with anyone at all, like on another job. You know, like, you know, maybe like a spark is popped in to do something for 5 minutes or something, but it's always just me and the radio. So, do
you know what, Richard? I've done it always. So at the moment, I'm actually working solo for the first time in about 8 years.
Oh, really?
Well, it's been ages I've had lads on. But like, say, pre-COVID, I'd got 5 lads on plus me, so there was 6 of us in total, pretty much operating as 3 teams of 2. But even then, even though I got 5 lads on, I was on my own quite a lot. Like, the lads would be together doing jobs, but me as the owner or the boss of the company, as it were, a lot of the time I would be driving around on my own. I'd be quoting. I'd be, going from one job to another. Or even if I was on the same site, I'd be working in I'd be doing like the finishing jobs. So like high-end wallpapering or the stuff that I reserved to, my own control issues where I had to do like the highest end stuff myself. So even though I was with people, I was still on my own. Different rooms, different areas, whatever it might be. So it is, I think if we all take steps to manage it, like as I said, I know that listening to podcasts and audiobooks helps me. But if we're aware of it and also be aware of the fact that it's a problem, like it's a problem. Something to keep an eye on, essentially, if you work on your own, is make sure you're not falling into a negative thought cycle.
Yeah.
And if you recognize that or can recognize that, is reach out to somebody and just talk, whether it's friends, family, or a stranger.
Yeah.
Just try and break that thought cycle. I think it's really important.
Yeah, definitely. Well, for me, I like to play football a lot, and like that helps me mentally. So like that's where I go to sort of escape everything. So like on a Monday, I'll play for 3 hours in a row. And if like when like COVID was on and all that, obviously everything was cancelled. That was like, I'd say I was probably at my lowest I'd ever been. Obviously a lot of people, were feeling the same sort of way. But just without,
without the activity,
just without a bag of air, mate, like kicking that around for an hour.
Football's great for the mental health, though, isn't it?
100%, yeah.
I played up until I was in my early 30s. Basically, when my son started playing football and playing Sundays, I stopped. A few injuries. You're about 10 years younger than me, mate. So you're enjoy it while you can, mate. Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy them knees while you've still got them, Rich. That's what that is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping like some of the guys I play with on Monday nights, they're like maybe mid-50s, something like that, and they're still playing. So like, I'm hoping to play for a long time yet. Like, I know I don't look like I'm a footballer at all. I ain't got the body for it. The amount of people say like, "Do you play rugby?" I'm like, no, I despise rugby. But yeah, I normally try and play maybe 4-5 times a week if I can.
That's fantastic, mate.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously without that, it's all seems good on the pan. Like, it's just.
Well, I think the overarching message there is just like knowing yourself, isn't it? Really, like like you're saying there, what helps you, and what you need to stay sort of like healthy mentally. So it's one of those, isn't it, where you're aware of your mental health, which is a great start to things. so being aware and realizing that everybody has it,
Yeah.
because there's that whole comment of, oh, I don't have mental health. Like, everyone's got mental health. Like, it's just that you might have good mental health. But knowing that James Reeve, actually, from Royal Spa, I'll give him a shout out because he came up with this analogy, and he said it's like playing Tekken. It's like the health bar on a Tekken game.
I recall him saying that.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, that's bang on that. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. You take a hit, it goes down. And if everybody thought of it that way and just sort of take that personal responsibility of going, actually, do you know what? I've took a few hits here. I need to bring my mental health back up. And for you, that might be playing football.
Yeah.
For me, it might be going out for a nice meal, But that paying attention, I think, to your own mental health is really important.
Yeah.
One of the questions, Rich, that I'm asking everybody, or I've asked everybody so far, mate, is, given the statistics in the building trades and the fact that they are hugely adversely affected compared to any other industry in the UK, the rates of mental health and suicide within men in the trades are so high compared to any other industry. I'm asking everybody the same question, which is, what's your take on why that is? There's no right or wrong answer, mate. I don't think there is an answer. But what's your take on it?
Well, I think that's just, it's not almost like an unanswerable question, but it's just, I just find it mad that it's, like, why does it affect, this trade so much? And it's like we were saying before record, like, obviously there's a lot of stress that goes into, like, different trades. Everyone has their different stresses in different things. But I don't know. It's not personally something I could really comment on. Like, I don't feel like I understand it enough to know why it affects us so much. The only thing that I could really say is, obviously, like, men don't like talking about their feelings, do they, really? Like, some are more open than others.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like it definitely helps to talk. I'm not sure if this is the answer you're looking for, really, but
Rich, honestly, there is no answer, mate.
Yeah.
I'm just interested to get everyone's perspective on it.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm asking everybody from all walks of life, because I think that there's probably 100 answers to the question.
Yeah.
And the answer you give will resonate with somebody, and somebody else might be out there listening, thinking, "Well, I think it's this," but there's no wrong answer. There's just that I think there's a whole myriad of reasons.
Yeah.
And what you've just said there about men not talking. My thought there would be, you're right. Definitely there is an issue with that. And then is that within the building trades, is that because it's a certain type of man that comes into the trades? Because
Possibly,
there is the
yeah.
difference between men in the trades versus men in general.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess obviously men in the trade, I guess, are more of like a macho kind of guy. But yeah, maybe that is to do with it. I don't know. Like, yeah, I'd say it's probably more of a stereotype.
A stereotype,
yeah. In the trade as to why we don't open up about things as much as we should.
And then that all comes down to the fear, I guess, of why. But why don't men in the trades open up in terms of the stereotype?
One, I feel like obviously a lot of men are scared to talk because one of their less like serious friends like rips the piss out of them for it, says
like fear of judgment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's probably a big thing, actually, fear of judgment for it. Like, I know someone personally who was scared to open up about his mental health to his partner, because whenever they fell out somewhere down the line, she used his weaknesses against him in arguments.
Okay.
Saying like, not like a real man, because you suffer, like, because you cry about these problems, things like that. Really? So like,
I mean, that's a real breach of trust, though, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the whole crying thing. I mean, Christ, man, some of the the hardest blokes out there, as it were. I mean, I listen to Joe Rogan a lot, and he'll cry on his podcasts, and that man would take apart most men. Do you know what I mean? So
exactly, yeah.
it's it's not a marker of masculinity.
Exactly. Well, take Tyson Fury for example.
Absolutely, yeah.
Heavyweight champion of the world, supposedly the hardest man, then I guess, in the world. But he's very open about his mental health.
Yeah. Tyson Fury, Mike Tyson, same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
He's openly spoke about his mental health struggles and cried on camera.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it? Because often it's us men that are most critical of each other.
Yeah.
And if people would just drop the judgment,
As the sad thing is, I don't think the judgment will ever go away. I mean, as much as we'd like it to, someone is always going to be there to judge you, aren't they? Let's be honest. Which is very sad that that's just how it is in life now, isn't it? It's pretty ridiculous that you're always going to get pulled apart by someone for something, not always a mental health thing, but it's just,
we can't stop that. There's always going to be the negative and the trolls, and a lot of the time that says everything about them. And generally, it's because they've got stuff going on in their lives that resonate, or resonate, wrong word. They like their vibrations, as it were. It's all negative. That they take negative, they give negative. I guess to me, it's kind of like a case of turning the tide. If there's more positive interactions, if you open up and you get more support and positivity from those around you, then that will drown out the voices of the negative.
Yeah.
And I think as men, we need to do our bit to support each other. If somebody does open up, then encourage that, support that.
100%. Yeah, like obviously one thing that obviously the passing of my friend has done for me is it's made me very aware of everyone, like obviously how they're all feeling. So like obviously the people that I know about, like my friends that suffer with mental health, especially like the men, I will now obviously like check in on them like a lot more than what I used to, and like I'll just try and be there for them as much as I can, because well, one, I can't go through what I went through with my mate last year. That was just it was too sad. So yeah, I just try to make sure I look after my mates as much as I can now, and even the ones that don't like talking about it, like I try like edge something into a conversation, like to let them know that I'm okay with them coming forward to me. Like obviously they're a bit hesitant to even talk to like their wife or their partner or whatever about their problems. So like, why should they talk to me if they can't talk to someone very close?
But at least you're opening the door to them, Rich.
Exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. And like a couple of years ago during lockdown, I posted like a mental health like sort of update on my Instagram, and a lot of my male friends that they don't and still haven't opened up about some of their mental health things to me. They openly commented on it, like on the public bit, might message me privately.
Okay.
They commented on it saying, like, this is something that I need to work on. I need to come forward with this, and
that's good.
Just put my thoughts out in the open. So like, I feel like I got a good reaction with that, and I feel like that sort of made people feel okay to talk to me about things like that. That's like good, I'm like no therapist, obviously. Like you do bits for Samaritans, and you probably know a lot more about it than me. In fact, you probably definitely do. But like, even just being there for like just to go for a drink or something with them.
Yeah, do you know what, Rich? I had a Samaritan, Meg, my branch director, in the other day. The podcast was released today, but when we were discussing Samaritans and the service, one of the points that were made was you don't have to volunteer as a Samaritan to be a Samaritan.
Yeah.
It's so easy. Like all you have to do is literally listen. Be there to listen and let people know that you're there to listen, and that makes you a Samaritan in essence.
Exactly.
So yeah, the more people doing that, mate, and it's a tragic thing that happened to your friend. But the thing that the light that I find in that is the concept of there being value to the trauma. And I know that sounds horrible because you look at, your friend has taken his own life, and to say that there was value in that. However, if there isn't value in that, surely it's better to find a purpose than not.
Yeah, see, I thought about this maybe a couple of weeks after he passed away. I thought, hence why I started reaching out to my friends and all this. And if I don't start doing these things, then in a way you sort of died in vain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just try and raise as much awareness as I can.
And that's what I mean, mate. If that tragic occurrence has now changed the way that you act, and by the sounds it has, 100%. It's changed your behaviour and actions towards your friends now. Yeah. That's the value in that. And I know it's not to say that it was worth it. It's two different things. But to find a value to a tragic event like that then maybe somewhere down the line you can affect somebody else's life in a positive way. It's all that we can do, I think, is to try and find the value and the lessons in life, even from the really shitty stuff. But it's it's been a total mindset changer for me personally to be able to do that and look and seek the value in negative events, to give you a positive future.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 100%. I think the more values I can find, in that, the better, really.
It's an ongoing process. I mean, in reality, maybe you wouldn't have been sat here today. And maybe possibly, something that you've said today will resonate with somebody. And then that'll affect their life. You'll probably never know about it. But
exactly, yeah. I
mean, it could happen.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, hopefully, some of the rubbish I come out with today might help someone, even like the not so serious bits. But
not at all, mate. The thing is, Rich, it's and this is one of the things, isn't it? In the trades, we're often laughing and joking about things, and as blokes, there's banter and all the rest of it. But there will be people that have been in your position that are maybe at the same position as you, starting up in business. I've got the same anxieties, same worries, and just often hearing somebody else sat there who's a little bit unsure, who is having the same worries, that's enough for people to go, okay, do you know what, it's not just me. And maybe they'll reach out to you, maybe they won't, maybe they'll follow your journey on Instagram and think, oh, he stuck at it, I'll stick at it. It's incredible that just that connection, the power that can have. And unfortunately, or fortunately, some of it you won't see because people will just take it in silence in their own environment.
Yeah.
But at this point, mate, I think I thank you for coming in. I thank you for opening up and talking about the situation with your friend, because I know that couldn't have been easy, mate. And I'm sure it will do some good. Is there anything that you want to finish up on saying?
Well, I want to actually ask you a question.
That's absolutely fine, mate. Yeah, you carry on. Rich is turning the tables on me here now.
Well, I just want to ask Russ. Obviously, you set this podcast to, I guess, check in on people a little bit and helps to talk and all that. So my question to you is: are you okay? Has anyone asked if you're all right? How are you doing in yourself? Because you can do all this for everyone else, but essentially, in a way, we're sort of unloading all our stories and all these potential problems onto you. I'm not saying you're going to take anything, on your shoulders of what I've said today, or anyone else. But it's important to make sure you're all right as well.
Well, you've blindsided me there. First of all, mate, I really do appreciate you asking that. Because, and in the sort of essence of, I'm asking people to talk openly. I need to do the same thing. It has been challenging at times. Fortunately, I have got my wife at home who does check in on me. So I have got somebody checking in on me. But it has been something that, so doing the podcast and sitting here with some amazing people, and I've heard some tales. And there have been a couple of times where I've gone home. I wouldn't say it's affected me, but it's certainly been on my mind, the things that I've heard. I've developed coping mechanisms that I've brought over from working with Samaritans.
Yeah.
However, I had this conversation, funnily enough, with my wife a couple of days ago, where I said it's just hitting differently. Because with Samaritans, it's anonymous and it's the other end of a phone and there's no face and it's a voice. And also they don't know me. So they just know my voice. I'm just a Samaritan. Doing this face to face, looking at somebody, seeing the emotion, seeing the face, it is hitting differently, mate. And I'm conscious of the emotional weight or the load that I'm taking on at times. So I really appreciate you asking, mate. I really do, because I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it, and it is difficult at times. I'm loving doing the podcast. I am, but yeah, I guess it has taken my thoughts. I guess at times, some of the things I'm hearing. And also, if I'm being honest as well, probably spending a disproportionate amount of time thinking about mental health.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about now, and talking and thinking about people who are taking their own lives. And again, I'm conscious that at some point I'm going to take a break, basically. So I'll have a few weeks or a couple of weeks where I'm just going to do nothing and just, recuperate and reevaluate. So
yeah, I think that's probably important to do that.
Yeah.
I can sort of relate to that. See, when I was speaking to my friend, the one that passed away, obviously I would go out and I'd meet him. Obviously we share our problems, and I feel like he had a bit more like baggage than me. And obviously he offloaded on me, I offloaded on him. But sometimes I would come home and I'd feel mentally drained from like 4 or 5 hours of being with him. And I couldn't do it all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like if I had to spend, it sounds awful this, but like I couldn't spend every day with him, because I feel like for my own sanity really and my mental health, I couldn't take all that on as well as my own problems.
Yeah.
So I know what you're saying. Obviously, you listen to a lot of stories, and obviously you've done 3 podcasts in the past 3 days.
Yeah, I've done a few too many, if I'm honest. The past week certainly, but I'm learning. I'm learning this. I'm learning the experience. I'm learning what I can take on and what I can't.
Yeah.
And also that there's a difference, if I'm honest, the inner workings of the podcast.
Yeah.
But when I'm talking to, for example, Meg from Samaritans, it's very different to talking about somebody's personal life.
Yeah.
Gary's episode that goes out Friday, I mean, you'll hear that and you'll know why.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a heavy hitter. And I came away from that one. I'll be honest, that one affected me in terms of it was on my mind a lot.
Yeah.
But I have got my coping mechanisms. I'm aware and I'm learning.
Yeah.
And there are things that I'm going to have to implement just to protect myself, essentially. But luckily, I've got my wife keeping an eye on me, as it were. But it's a really valid point, though, mate. It really is. One of the things, like at Samaritans, when we take some calls and we hear some horrific things and some beautiful things at the same time, there's an offloading process where we offload the calls at the end of a shift.
Yeah.
And I almost need to work out some kind of implementation of that, if I'm honest, with some of this. Because it is very, not negative, but it's very heavy, a lot of the content. And it is, as I say, the whole mental health situation is on my mind a lot more than what it would be for a normal person, I guess. Because of the podcast and everything surrounding it. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's got to be a lot to take on for you, really. So, just make sure.
Hopefully, I've got some. Hopefully, I got some broad shoulders. But yeah, no, I really appreciate that, mate. I appreciate that. You blindsided me with that question, and it has been something that's on my mind. So, I'm aware of it, and hopefully, I'll manage it.
As long as you're aware of it, then and then
it's the first step, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, as long as you take your own time for yourself and all that, and you got to be selfish sometimes, I guess, haven't you? And look after yourself.
Yeah, it's not selfish, is it? Self-care isn't selfish, but I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, it's I do, and I have thought that I'm going to factor in a couple of weeks off where I'm going to do essentially nothing relating to the podcast and just live a normal life for a couple of weeks and then come back to it renewed. But it's hopefully we're doing some great work, so it's all worth it. But
from what I can see so far, mate, it's good. The feedback I've seen, and obviously I've had conversations with it behind closed doors. It's doing well.
The feedback's been amazing, mate. It really has. I've had some really, really incredible personal messages. But yeah, it's been great. So thank you to everybody for all the support and anyone who's listened so far. I hope it's helped, and I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and that it's hitting the right mark. It's really appreciated, as I say, all the support that everyone's had, and all the messages I've had so far. They do make a difference. So, right, Rich, now you've blindsided me. To wrap it up, mate, where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram, just Major League Painter. The logo's pretty hard to miss, in fairness. And then that's it.
Is it just Instagram?
Well, I'm on Facebook as well, but it's not nearly as entertaining as my Instagram, really. So that's more for like.
I'll put a link to Rich's Instagram in the podcast description, and tag him in the posts that will go up on Instagram. So if you don't follow him currently, go and give Rich a follow. Go and say hello to Rich after the episode. And once again, thank you very much for tuning in, listening. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please give it a like, share, follow, subscribe, depending on what platform you're on. Much appreciated, and take care.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, blindsided me with a question at the end, Rich.
That come to me like about halfway through.
Yeah, man, fair play.